You want a big back. I want a big back. Everybody in the world wants a big back. Let's do a tier list for back exercises. First up, the hyperextension. Now, I really like the hyperextension. Do I think that it is king back hypertrophy movement? Probably not. Would I lean on the hyperextension more so as kind of like a rehab exercise? In my mind, yes, but I do think you can get a lot of great lower back development with the hyperextension. We've got to start somewhere. We've got to really kind of set a bar here. So I think I'm just going to put it middle of the road. By the way, we've got Definitely Not Natty, You Compete, What's Your Insta, Nice Beginner Gains, Do You Even Lift, and I'm Sorry for Your Loss. I didn't make this tier list. These people that are making these tier lists, they really love to get creative with their tiers. But we're going to go kind of F to S tier, the normal, natural way. Also, we are going to focus once again on hypertrophy, not strength. So if you have an issue with me putting an exercise that may be more strength focused lower down on the bottom of the tier list, just understand that I'm talking about hypertrophy for the back, not strength. So T-bar rows, really solid exercise. Really like the T-bar row with your chest supported a little bit more than just the regular T-bar row. Because if we're talking about hypertrophy, we want to talk about fatigue generated by the exercise. And I think that the standing T-bar row with no chest support can be pretty fatiguing to the low back. And the low back may be your limiting factor rather than your lats. And because of that, we're probably just going to put it, what's that going to be, B tier? Barbell rows, same issue with the T-bar row, but I think you get more generalized back development from the barbell row. Like you may want your lower back to be impacted with the barbell row. Plus, the barbell row just feels better to me than the T-bar row, so we're going A tier on that one. Seated machine rows checks every box that you could want for hypertrophy. You have great stimulus to fatigue ratio. You have great ability to feel the muscle that you want to feel without any other muscles being the limiting factor. I'm a huge fan. If you get a good seated machine row, if you have a good seated machine row in your gym, mwah, chef's kiss. It is 100% S tier here. I really like pull-ups. Obviously, I think pull-ups are incredible. I think pull-ups are a great all-around general exercise for understanding someone's actual strength capacity. Like there's no other exercise like the pull-up in terms of like, oh, this dude is strong or this person is strong. It feels great to be able to pull your own body weight up over a bar. Now, with all that being said, I do think that the pull-up may lose out a little bit because of the fatigue generated by the exercise, because of the general difficulty for a lot of human beings. Not everybody can do a pull-up. And if they can do a pull-up, maybe their form is not going to be universal across the board, so it can be difficult to progress. So we're going to put pull-ups with barbell rows in the A tier. Deadlifts, here we go again. If we're talking about strength, there's nothing better. I love the deadlift. It's my favorite exercise. One, probably deadlift and squat, top two. However, for hypertrophy, the level of fatigue that you generate in the deadlift for the amount of growth and the amount of repeatability. If you deadlift heavy, usually you're only going to get in once a week. It can be difficult to really build a solid hypertrophy workout around a deadlift. Many people have done it. It's been very successful for a lot of people. But if we're talking just hypertrophy, we got to probably put it with T-bar rows just because the fatigue is really, really, really high. Single arm dumbbell rows, excellent exercise. I like it. I think it's done with a really subpar form for a lot of people, or I guess subpar is not the right word, but like not being repeatable. So some people will progress the exercise, not because they got stronger. So let's say you're rowing 80 pounds with really solid technique, you're not swinging, you're not using a lot of momentum, and then to kind of pump their ego up, they're gonna jump up to 90. And instead of sticking with that stable form, now when they've got to 90 pounds, they're starting to swing, they're using a lot of body English, but they're assuming that they've gotten stronger and that they're creating better hypertrophy without really doing that. This is getting really nitty gritty. This is advanced type stuff. But when we're talking about eking out those last little bit of back gains, I do think that the single arm dumbbell row has to go below. I'm gonna put it with pull-ups, below pull-ups probably, because again, you can do a single arm seated row that is going to lock you into more standardized form, to more ability to really progress the exercise a little bit easier than if you are the single arm dumbbell row champion. If you are totally honest with yourself about form, the single arm dumbbell row is probably going to be the same as the seated single arm row, but we're not going to give people the benefit of the doubt because I've seen too much bad form to give people the benefit of the doubt. The dumbbell pullover, this is a great exercise that I think a lot of people have kind of forgotten about. It can be difficult to set up. It can be difficult to do. And because of that, I don't think that you can put it top of the list. I love this exercise. If you really get good at this exercise, I think you can get some fantastic lat growth that you really can't get with other exercises. So I just really like it, but I cannot put it any higher than B just because it's so difficult for people to do. And if we're making a list, I'm looking at this list as like, yo, I am new in the gym. I have no idea how to set things up. I have just a basic commercial gym. Give me the best exercise I can do to get my back as big as possible. And because of that, I really can't justify putting the dumbbell pullover any higher than B tier. If we're talking about experienced lifters, I would probably put it higher. Seated rows, again, this is tough. Probably top of A tier because I still think without the chest support and without the ability to get tactile feedback to stay locked into your form, the seated row, you can still swing. You can still have subpar or not transferable form across the board, and that can cause you to not get the most out of the exercise. We are really, really being nitpicky here. I would say anything in the top 3 rows, you could do repeatably and get huge benefits out of, even if you are not using optimal form, quote unquote, even though what is optimal in the world? I mean, sometimes you do need a little bro form to actually use stimulus that's going to get you stronger. We got the lat pull down. It's gotta go top of A. Actually, we're going S. We're going S. I know a lot of people are going to be pissed about me putting pull-ups in A tier and lat pull downs in S tier, but I think it's easier to be repeatable. More people can do it. All the things that we already talked about that take away from the pull-up, I think you get with the pull down. There's so many people on the optimal side of Instagram that are like, oh, well, the lat pull down doesn't hit this and this head. Just, horizontal pull, vertical pull that you can repeat, that you can actually progress, you're gonna be good. But we're being pedantic because this is a tier list. Next up, we got the plane pull, and I would love if every commercial gym came equipped with a 747 that we could pull. That would be awesome. I guess you could say sled pull, but I think they have that on here anyway. They got the push. So let's just say a pull of some kind. I guess maybe you're pulling a sled. I don't think it's very repeatable. I think it's awesome. Like, I love watching the strongman compete and do it at World's Strongest Man. As a hypertrophy exercise, I don't think it's very repeatable. I don't know, man. If your gym comes equipped with a 747 and just a tarmac for you to pull, I don't know what your monthly gym membership is, but it's probably more than I can pay. So for that, I'm gonna put it at F tier. I would look at the sled push more as like a conditioning exercise. Of course, you're gonna get carryover. Pushing, really, I don't know if you're gonna get much back work here. I'm not a huge pusher. I haven't done a lot of sled pushing. When I've done it for conditioning work. I've got more out of it in my quads. I don't know, maybe a little bit in my back, but I think it's got to probably go. I don't think you're getting much back. I take it back. I don't think you're getting much back work done here. So we're going with sorry for your loss. It's got to be F tier. Chest supported row. You know how much we love chest supported. So this is, if you're gonna ding me for the single arm dumbbell rows, here you go. I call these steel rows, I guess. Chest supported row of some kind. I'm assuming in the picture they're using dumbbells. So you're taking away kind of the low back fatigue, which I really like. When we're talking about building the low back, maybe we lean on the hyperextension for low back development. But when we're talking about upper back and lat development, when we're using these bigger pulling movements, we really need to take the low back out of it so that we can effectively attack and fatigue the muscles that we want to. And your low back is gonna get fatigued way faster than your upper back and your lats. I promise you, 9 times out of 10. So that's why I really like leaning on the chest supported variations. Super yoke, once again, it's a really cool exercise. It's a great upper upper back exercise because you've got to hold that yoke position. It's a lot of fun. I, again, for hypertrophy, think it's more of a conditioning exercise. It may not give you the best stimulus fatigue ratio that you're looking for, but I do think it's a little bit better in terms of hypertrophy development than the plain pull or the sled push. So we're gonna put it in D. All right, we got yoga up next. I think a lot of people would assume that I would say yoga is pretty garbage because I am a meathead, because I'm a gym bro. I like to pump some iron, but I think yoga is incredibly impactful. However, I do not think yoga is incredibly impactful in terms of hypertrophy. Yoga may help you build a base of strength and hypertrophy in the back, but if we're talking maximal hypertrophy, which is what we're building this list for, I think you're gonna reach your stopping point with yoga way faster than you could with some of these other exercises that are above it. Come for me. If you're a yogi or whatever they call them, fight me. I'm totally fine. Talk to me in the comments about how yoga is the best back exercise. Sumo deadlifts, it's gonna go probably super yoke. Honestly, if you're doing the sumo deadlift right, you really should not be getting a lot of back hypertrophy. Again, the stimulus to fatigue ratio is off. You're leaning more on your legs and your glutes in the sumo deadlift. That's why people do it. You've shortened your range of motion. All the things that we want for hypertrophy, longer range of motion, very specific movements, we lose in the sumo deadlift. So it's got to go with the super yoke. Below the super yoke, honestly, the straight arm pull down, another exercise that I think a lot of people have kind of left behind for no reason whatsoever. I think this is a fantastic exercise. Very similar to the dumbbell pullover in that if you can do it correctly, if you can do it lat focused, which a lot of people just end up using their triceps more so than anything. But if you can actually do this and perform this exercise properly, the growth and the stimulus that you get in the lats is unlike any other lat focused exercise. Big fan of this exercise, really, really like it. Suspension row, I like it. I like any type of suspension row, whether you're doing it on a Smith machine, whether you're doing it on the TRX handles. So maybe it goes to the top of this. I do think that if you're gonna do a row, like I've always said, take other aspects of the row out of it. Take away the low back fatigue, take away the need to balance, which, you know, suspension row as an all-around exercise, fantastic, but you do need to balance. You do need to be able to pull yourself up. A lot of people can't do this. So if I'm telling people straight off the bat, these are the best exercises, I can't in good conscience include this. Next up, we got the dumbbell shrugs. I'm just gonna say shrugs in general. I think shrugs are good. I'm probably actually gonna put this in B tier. Because I think the fatigue is way too high for a lot of people. A lot of people do this exercise wrong. They load up as much weight as they can handle. They've got the straps on and they do this. And they're shrugging like crazy. If you're doing a well-executed shrug where you're up, maybe taking a pause, letting it stretch you down, the load is appropriate, you haven't gone absolutely wild, then I think the shrug is a fantastic exercise. But I do think you're gonna get a lot of carryover with a lot of these other exercises that maybe you may not need the shrug. If your traps are a lagging body part, then maybe go for it. But I think it's a solid B tier exercise. Man maker row is probably gonna go same with the suspension row. If you don't know the man maker row, it's a really great core exercise actually. You hold a plank position, you've got two dumbbells and you row them back and forth. So yes, you are stimulating the back with the rowing motion. However, you are more so stimulating your core to stay balanced. You're more so stimulating conditioning as well, because it's a pretty hyperactive movement. So you're gonna be huffing and puffing a little bit. I like the exercise a lot. Do I like the exercise for back hypertrophy? Not as much. I think there are way better exercises, as you can see by the tier list here. But I think it's in that same category with suspension row. If you're looking to switch things up a little bit, maybe get a little bit more balance work along with your back work, go for it. If you're short on time, whatever. Pilates, swimming, I would call these Superman, I guess, but Superman's coming up next. So I guess this is a Superman with movement. We're gonna put this with yoga. I mean, it's pretty much the same type of thing. You're gonna get great back activation. You're probably gonna get a lot of low back activation doing this movement. I think it's good, not great. So that's why we're going C tier. Superman, same thing. The Superman, I would say, is just a hold. It's an isostatic. It's an isometric movement that's the same as the Pilates swimming, but you're getting the activity with the Pilates swimming. You're not getting the activity with the Superman. I think the Superman is a fantastic entry to back training. So maybe, you know, if you're at home, if you're working out at home a lot, you deal with a lot of back pain, I think the Superman is a great way to get started, to start to feel some of those muscles, especially in the low back, start to fire. Shrugs, same as the dumbbell shrugs, but somehow worse, because I think with the barbell, you can really, really load it up. I work at a commercial gym and I have seen some horrendous shrug forms, some stuff that would just, I don't know, it would curl the hair on your toes. But I do think, like, if it's done properly, it's a decent exercise. So we're gonna put it in B. And finally, the muscle up. Again, I'm probably gonna put this is more of a specialized exercise for me, a specialized exercise like the super yoke, the yoke pull, whatever. Really hard to do, really hard to replicate, really cool exercise if you can do it. Great Instagram exercise because it's like, whoa, look at this guy. Not only can he do a pull-up, but he can also go over top of the bar. Fantastic. I don't think it's very repeatable. I think there's better ways to get some back hypertrophy. It's one of those movements that once you've done a lot of these base back hypertrophy movements for a while, you're able to do it and kind of show off. But so this is the list. Do I want to change anything? Seated rows can go either way, up or down. I like anything in S and A tier is A+ for me. Like the only difference between those two tiers is the fatigue ratio. Sometimes you want to be fatigued. Like we get so in our heads about stimulus to fatigue. Well, sometimes you're not doing enough to even get stimulus. So don't worry about fatigue in that way. You know what I mean? So honestly, top 3 rows I would put in any generalized back hypertrophy program. We get more specialized towards the bottom. We get super specialized with the plane pull. That's probably got to be last because again, who's pulling planes? I don't know. Again, hit me up. Let me get a guest pass to your gym if you're pulling planes. Are there any that are missing here? I don't think so. I really like all types of row variations, but I lean more towards, chest supported row variations just for that fatigue thing. So this is your list. I'll leave a link to this down in the description. Please do your own tier list and send it to me and be mad. If this was not what you would have done, go for it. I'd love to hear from you. You can DM it to me on Instagram. Please subscribe to the channel, like the video. If you enjoyed this tier list and you want to see another one of my tier lists, you can click on this video right here for some leg training tier list action. Thank you so much for watching. Get strong and stay strong.